everybody. Hey, if we haven't met yet, I'm Justin, as per the name tag. I'm the pastor. Oh, hi, Alicia. Hi. I'm the pastor of student ministries here at Smoky Point Community Church. It's good to worship with you, and it's good. I love the one service weekends. And kids, I'm so glad you're here. Students, I'm so glad you're here. We get to worship together as one family. Because I am the youth pastor, you guys know, you're used to this. Whenever I get up here, I give myself the freedom to do some youth pastor things. So I would like to ask for a volunteer to start out. But, are there any volunteers to come up here and do something very, very, very simple? Very, very simple. Is there anybody? Do you want to? Get on up here, everybody. Give our volunteer a round of applause, everyone. All right. So just stand right here, my friend. How's it going? Good. All right. So this you didn't know that you were volunteering to also say your name at least. What's your name?
Atticus.
Hi, Atticus. Okay. What is this?
A chair.
A chair. Yes, excellent. Here, I'm going to stand on this side. A chair. Do you think you could sit in this chair?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, that was the right answer. All right, so I want you to stand right here. And your task is to sit in this chair. Don't do it yet. Do you think you'll be able to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you think this chair is going to be able to hold you?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Do you know, though, maybe I tampered with it and it's actually going to collapse when you sit in it? What do you think about that? He doesn't want to answer that. I didn't. I promise I didn't. But here's the thing. Do you really know if this chair is actually going to hold you?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, but you don't really know until you actually sit in the chair, right? It's like, in theory, it probably will. Okay, it seems like it's a fine chair, but you don't really know until you sit down, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, go ahead, sit down. Yeah! That's all. Good job, man. That was excellent. Give Atticus one more round of applause. I know, it's goofy. You might have seen that illustration before. It's been used throughout the years. And it's a simple illustration, a simple example, because the chair itself is supposed to represent faith, right? This chair, this idea of faith that you have to sit down on the chair to really know that it's going to hold you. You can guess, I think this is going to hold me, but you don't really know what you can't fully see and fully understand. And faith is one of these things that takes this putting my full weight on this chair. It's not actually, we're not actually, you're putting your faith in this chair saying, I believe this is going to hold me. And faith in our life is really easy to cling to. It's really easy to put our weight fully on Jesus. In a similar way as the chair, we put our weight fully on Jesus and we lean on him. It's really easy to do that when times are good, right? In the easy times, in the good times, right? That's when it's easy to do that. But what about when things are not good? When things are uncertain? When the future is unclear, when we're afraid or anxious, when sorrow and pain is near, it's a lot harder to lean fully in our faith and trust. It's harder in those times, but it's in those times that we need to hear from the Lord this simple phrase that says, trust me, I got this. Trust me, I got this. As we go into the fall, we are going to be doing a few weeks of messages that aren't connected to our summer series or our fall series. And today is one of those. And as I thought about what I wanted to share with you today, the prophet Habakkuk came to mind. the prophet Habakkuk. And I want to take a look at his story this morning as we seek to hear from the Lord and see what he has for us today. But because Habakkuk might not be a familiar story for many of us, maybe a lot of us are, that's cool. Little history of the Bible. Genesis 1 through 11 is the first part of the Bible. God creates this perfect world. He creates humanity, and humanity rebels and says, we want to do our own thing. And Genesis 1 through 11 describes this process. And then the rest of the Bible is God's story of redeeming all of creation. And that story starts with there's the flood. There's God calls this guy named Abraham. Abraham, he says, hey, I am going to make a covenant with you, and you are going to become a great nation, and I'm going to bless the whole world through you, and you will be my people, and you will obey me and receive these blessings that I promised to you. And so Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, God is doing some things through in history with his people that he is creating for himself. And eventually, if you know the story, God's people make their way to Egypt to be saved. They become slaves. 400 years later, God brings them out of Egypt. He brings them into the land. I'm skipping a lot of time here. They're in the promised land, and eventually, there's this guy named King David, and God makes a covenant with him as well. And he says, hey, your throne is going to rule forever and ever. And David was this awesome king, this example. And then all these other kings, they're all like pointing back, like, is this the king that's going to reign forever? And it's like, nope. Over and over. And eventually things get really bad because God's people have rejected God's ways and they're living in their own way. And eventually God's nation that was unified and together splits into two kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, the Israel and Judah. And eventually this nation called Assyria comes and takes over the northern kingdom, takes them into captivity, just like God promised and foretold through his prophets would happen. And eventually, the same thing happens to Judah. Habakkuk sits right there, right before, just a couple decades before the kingdom of Judah falls to the Babylonians. Okay, so do you see kind of a big picture here? Eventually, God's people go out, get taken into captivity. They get taken, 70 years later, they get brought back from exile, back into the land, Second Temple period. Eventually, years and years later, Jesus comes, and you might know part of the rest of the story. But that's where Habakkuk sits, a few decades before Judah falls. And Habakkuk's a unique prophet because a lot of the prophets were usually speaking words to God's people, usually warning them or calling them back or telling them of something that's going to happen in the future. Ezekiel and Jeremiah were prophets during the same time as Habakkuk. But Habakkuk was unique because he said, huh? And he looked at what was happening in the world around him and he said, huh? And he asks two very important questions. So rather than like God speaking to him and him speaking to his people, he takes his questions to God. And so his perspective is unique compared to some of his contemporaries. And it's really beautiful and it's really sweet and also really challenging. And he's the prophet who said, huh? And we're going to check out those questions today. So let's pray before we dive into the text. And if you wanted to open your Bible, be in Habakkuk chapter 1. But let's pray as we approach God's word and seek to hear from our Lord. God, thank you so much for your mercy, for your grace, for your love. God, even just as we were singing these truths about who you are and how you love us in and out of season, God, I'm just so thankful. And it's good to just even pause and remember that you have invited us into your family. God, I pray that as we approach your word, as we seek to hear from you, that we would be listeners, that we would hear from your spirit, that you would be speaking. God, we confess that we have our own agendas, our own burdens, our own things happening. But God, we want to hear from you. And we ask that you would do that today. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Habakkuk, chapter 1. We are going to look at Habakkuk's story. And by the way, if you are following along in a Bible on your own, which I would really encourage you to do, it's also on the screen. I'm reading it in the NLT, the New Living Translation today. It's a translation I use with the students a lot. And I'm doing that because as I was looking at some different translations, I just love in this specific book, in Habakkuk, how some things are phrased, and it's just really approachable. So if you're following along, you're like, why are the words not exactly the same as mine? That's why. Habakkuk chapter 1. This is the message that the prophet Habakkuk received in a vision. How long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Violence is everywhere. I cry, but you do not come to save. Must I forever see these evil deeds? Why must I watch all this misery? Wherever I look, I see destruction and violence. I'm surrounded by people who love to argue and fight. The law, talking about God's law, the Old Testament law, has become paralyzed. There's no justice in the courts. The wicked far outnumber the righteous, so that justice is perverted. Do you see his first question? Where are you, God? What are you doing? Don't you see? You can feel his frustration as you read this. This prophet, it's almost like he's got his finger wagging at the God of the universe saying what are you doing? Because clearly you don't care. Clearly, you're not involved. Clearly, you've just ignored us because sin is everywhere. It's everywhere around me. And here's the thing. Habakkuk knows who God is. He knows he's holy. He knows he's just. He knows he is righteous. And he says, God, why aren't you acting that way? Because when I look around me, that's not what I see happening. And here's a really important thing with students, especially on Sunday mornings at our student ministry service, which starts next week, students. We'll be over there next week. What I always talk to them about is let's be good Bible study. Let's do good Bible study. Do good Bible study, be good Bible studiers. Those were the two phrases. Sorry, I got those confused. We can't just take our situation and just import it, drop it right into the text. That would be bad Bible study. This passage meant something for Habakkuk and the people that were living in that day and that time, and we're going to dig into what that means so that we can then understand who God is, his character, learn something about ourself, our sin, our salvation, our sanctification for today. But it has to mean something first in there. We can't just drop our situation in there. And here's an important thing with Habakkuk's cry, his complaint to God. As he looks curiously at the world around him, he says, what are you doing, God? He knows God is just. And the thing that's really important to understand is he's not looking at people around, the nations around God's people. He's saying, look at your people. Your people are corrupt. Your people are doing violence everywhere. Injustice is happening from the top to the bottom. There's corruption in the government, in the courts, in those upholding the law. They're not actually doing it, and people are being downtrodden. People are suffering because those in power are abusing their power. And he says, what are you doing, God? What are you doing? God's people have wandered away. Are you going to call them back? And while the context of Habakkuk might be different, I think we can actually really relate. We can really relate to this prophet. I know in my life, specifically the last couple years, I have cried out like this prophet more times than I think I ever have in my life, asking the same question, God, where are you? What are you doing? Why have you not answered my prayer? Because I am begging you to act, and I don't see you answering the way that I have assumed you would. Loss, grief, waiting, hoping. And I imagine your cry might not be the same as mine, but you've probably been there, where you've asked, God, what are you doing? Are you even there? Are you even real? I read this as I was studying this passage. I read this quote. It says this, it is a wise man who takes his questions about God to God for answers. It's a wise man who takes his questions about God to God for answers. So how does God answer Habakkuk? Because Habakkuk's story is really unique in that God actually says something. Because we might question God, and we might not get like a booming voice from heaven that answers, hey, this is actually what I'm doing. So let's continue to read and see God's answer. Verse 5. The Lord replied, look around at the nations. Look and be amazed. For I am doing something in your own day, something that you wouldn't even believe, even if someone told you about it. Habakkuk, you wouldn't even believe it if you knew. But I am actually doing something so wild that you wouldn't even, like your puny little brain couldn't even comprehend what I am doing. God, in his infinite power and wisdom, he has a plan, and our limited scope can't even picture it. It's like we're looking in a microscope and seeing like one little point, and God's like looking with a wide angle lens, and he sees the whole picture. God's perspective is so much different than ours. And here's what's super cool and really encouraging from this passage, is that God actually does answer. And when Habakkuk goes to God with this cry, this frustration, this anger, God says, hey, I actually do see you. I actually am working. I actually have a plan in place, and it's happening. And that is an encouragement that I know that I've needed so many times, for God to whisper to me like, Justin, just trust me. I got this. I got this. We have this curious prophet who's boldly complaining to God, and God actually shows up and answers. And one question that I just love for us to wrestle with, even just right now, is it okay? Is it okay to complain to God like this? Is it okay to bring our doubts to him in such an audacious way? Such a bold way to say, God, what are you doing? Are you even real? The thing that I want you to hear, I want to tell you this first. Sorry, excuse me. Maybe you've tried to go to God like this, in this way, but you've been hesitant. Maybe you haven't wanted to voice your doubts, your fears, your frustrations, because you might be worried of how he might respond. Our parents shape us in all sorts of ways because they're our parents, in positives and negatives. I remember being 16, 17, 18 and learning how to drive. I would like to say that I am a great driver. I also liked to drive fast when I was that age. And still, hey, that's my wife. Here's my thing. This is, I think that I didn't actually drive that fast, but I was just usually in the wrong place, going the wrong speed at the wrong time. And I got not one, but a few speeding tickets in my time. A lot. Actually, I think it was I can't remember if it's my first or second, or maybe third. I got a speeding ticket right in this parking lot when I was a high schooler. I was coming to worship practice, and I was driving on this road too fast, and the cop was behind me. It was probably my first ticket because I didn't know what to do. I should have pulled over on the the correct side, but I pulled into the church parking lot and got a ticket in the church parking lot. Fun stuff. Here's my point though, is I remember holding this ticket and having to call my parents or come home in that feeling of like, oh no. Because I knew I had done something wrong, but it was also like, oh no, what are they gonna say? What are they gonna do? How are they gonna respond? And fear would just like well up in me. And I think some of it was rightful fear of like, you just got a speeding ticket, Justin, come on. But it was like, I don't know how they're gonna respond. Our Heavenly Father responds not in the ways that we might experience at home, not in the ways we've experienced in our life, but he responds with tender care and love and compassion. When we go to him with our complaints, with our doubts, with our bold words and complaints, God can handle it. He can handle it. He can handle your fervent frustrations and your darkest doubts. God can handle it all. And I really believe part of Habakkuk's story is inviting us to be really honest with God, because when we are honest with God, it's where he can do some real growth in us. When we're honest with God, we can be honest with ourselves and honest with our community, and God can do some real sweet growth through that. And I think there's an invitation there that's really sweet and really beautiful. Over and over, you see it in the Psalms. The psalmists cry out in these same ways. King David himself. God can handle it, so go to him. You can be brutally honest with him. It's okay. So what was God going to do? He says, hey, I have a plan. I am working. Trust me, I got this. But then God continues and actually tells Habakkuk that plan, which I think is pretty cool. So we're going to see what that plan is. And it's a little bit surprising. Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 6. I am raising up the Babylonians. Your translation, if you're reading a different one than the NLT, it might say Chaldeans. That's like the name for the dynasty of the Babylonian Empire. So it's talking about the same thing here, okay? I'm raising up the Babylonians, a cruel and violent people. They will march across the world and conquer other lands. They are notorious for their cruelty, and they do whatever they like. Their horses are swifter than cheetahs and fiercer than wolves at dusk. Their charioteers charge from far away like eagles. They swoop down to devour their prey. These are some really bad people. Really bad. In fact, if you keep reading it, God keeps talking about how bad they are. God says, I have a plan. Trust me, I got this. You know the Babylonians, those really bad people? They're coming. And it's me. I've been raising them up because injustice is happening around you, and I've raised up somebody to fix that. Wait a second. God is going to use these really bad people to take care of God's people who are really bad. What is going on? God says, trust me, I got this. In fact, we're not going to get into it, but if you read beyond chapter 2, God says, and I will take care of them because they will be punished for their wickedness. They will be. But we're not going to get into that part of the story. That's okay. We don't have time for that. We're going to keep reading because just like us, Habakkuk hears that and says, well, hold on. He says, huh? You say what? The who? Babylonians? What are you doing, God? And he goes to God a second time. Verse 12. O Lord my God, my Holy One, you who are eternal, surely you do not plan to wipe us out. O Lord, our God, you have sent these Babylonians to correct us, to punish us for our many sins. But you are pure and cannot stand the sight of evil. Will you wink at their treachery? Should you be silent while the wicked swallow up people more righteous than they? He's like, wait, how can you do this, God? You're righteous and holy. Can you even do this? Are you able to do this? Can you? And surely you wouldn't use these really, really bad people to like wipe out us who are also at least a little bit better than they are. Yeah, we're at least a little bit better. Yes, we have our issues, God, but certainly those tyrants who worship false gods, surely we're more righteous than they are. Verse 17, if you skip down a little ways. Will you let them get away with this forever? Will they succeed forever in their heartless conquests? Chapter 2, verse 1. I will climb up on my watchtower to stand at my guard post. There I will wait to see what the Lord says and how he will answer my complaint. Our curious prophet is now ready for an answer. He comes to the Lord with boldness, but then he puts himself in a position of listening and waiting. Now the text just immediately is about to go into God's reply, but we actually don't know how much time was there. Habakkuk goes to this watchtower. It probably was like a place for him of prayer, a place for him to go and be with the Lord. He says, I'm going to go to my place. I'm going to look out, watch for your people, and I'm going to wait on your answer. I'm going to wait. We don't know if it was like immediately God said something, or maybe it was a couple hours, maybe it was a couple days, maybe a couple months. We don't know. But the thing that's really important is that Habakkuk put himself in a position where he could wait and wait on the Lord to answer. So here's my question for us to consider. When we see something in our life, in our world, when something is not right, what's our first response? Do we go to Facebook and start complaining about it? And I know we laugh about that, but like I see it. And like I'm not trying to like point finger at like specific people, but I mean I've done it. Do we go to a friend and just vent and just complain, express our frustrations? Or is the first response that we do is like, I need to go to the Lord and I need to wait on him? Because that in itself is already putting us in the place of saying, God, I am having a really hard time trusting you, but I want to learn how. And I need your help. And I need to wait on you. And I know that you do things in your time. And I see things only through this microscope. But God, I want to wait on you. And I want to see what you have to say. And that right there, friends, is a discipline. It's not easy to just go and do that. And I think especially when things aren't well, it's harder to do that. But Habakkuk gives us this sweet example of like, all right, I'm going to go and I'm going to wait on the Lord. And again, God shows up and he answers him. Habakkuk 2, verse 2 and 3. And the Lord replied, the Lord said to me, write my answer plainly on tablets so that a runner can carry the correct message to others. This vision is for a future time. It describes the end and it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait patiently, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. Sorry, I don't think I put that slide in there. That was my bad. God says, hey, it's going to happen. I am going to do something. I am going to answer your prayers. and wait. It might seem slow, and let me tell you how slow. It was like 70-ish years later that the Babylonians came and conquered Judah, that this wickedness was taken care of. 70 years later. And God says, wait patiently. It might not seem like I'm doing something, but I actually am. In my time and in my wisdom, I am doing something. Verse 4 is the crux of this whole book, where God answers the prophet and says, this is what you are to do. Look at the proud. They trust in themselves, and their lives are crooked. But the righteous will live by their faithfulness to God. Another translation might say, but the righteous will live by faith. Yes, all of this is happening. But Habakkuk, the righteous will live by their faithfulness to God. When a husband and wife get married, I've officiated a handful of weddings, and usually when a husband and wife get married, they share vows to one another, and they say something like, I pledge myself to you, and I choose to be faithful only to you, forsaking all others. And they vow to each other, and they say, you are it. I'm pledging myself to you and you alone, nobody else. You are my priority. And it's this idea of this loyal, enduring promise that goes beyond the circumstances. When a couple gets married, they say, I am pledging myself to you in and out of season. No matter what is going on, you are my person. And there will be ups and there will be downs, but I am here with you. And when God says the righteous shall live by their faithfulness, he's describing in a similar way this kind of trust and endurance, this loyalty to our Heavenly Father, that regardless of the outward circumstances, that we continue to put our full weight upon our Savior. No matter what is happening, we lean fully on him. And he invites us to do that. And he says, trust me, I got this. Trust me, I got this. I love how God answers Habakkuk in contrasts. This is what the righteous are going to do, but this is what the prideful do. The proud. He's really talking about the Babylonians. He says they trust in themselves. They trust in their own plan, their own ideas, their own strength. But instead, you, as my child, as my chosen people, trust in me. Lean on me. The New Testament takes up this passage a couple times, three different times. And Paul once takes up this phrase in a really significant way. And I actually read that passage in my last sermon like a month ago. Galatians chapter 3, verse 11 says, so it is clear that no one can be made right with God by trying to keep the law. For the scriptures say it is through faith that a righteous person has life. It is through faith that a righteous person has life. Because that's the truth. That's the truth, friends, is that if you have put your faith in Jesus, that he has made you new. He has made you righteous, not based on anything that you could ever do, but on his work that was done on the cross. When Jesus took on our sin, our shame, our death upon himself, received the wrath of God in his body on the tree, and by his wounds, we can now be healed. Because he went to the grave, he died, and he rose again 3 days later, conquering sin and death. And that is the good news. And we cling to that truth by faith, not because we are anything special or that we do any good works to be good enough for God. But God offers us this gift of grace, and he says, believe, have faith, and that's enough. That's enough. And from that faith, we can live by faith. We can live by faith. But it's a lot harder when life is a storm, right? It's a little bit harder for our first reaction to be to lean fully on Jesus sometimes. But we actually can. We actually can, and here's why. Because we can choose to believe in what is true. We can choose to believe in what is true, what we know about God, and then rest in that true. Because we know that God hears us. We know that he cares for us. We know that he has a plan. We know his promises will never fail. And we know that he loved us so much that he went to the cross for us. We can live by faith even when there's a storm because we're surrounded by those of us who have gone before us who has faith when we cannot have it. I was listening to this interview, this podcast of this person who was talking about worship and was talking about how cool corporate worship is. That's when we sing together, when we gather as a church and sing together. He's like, it's so sweet because maybe you're standing here singing and like, man, I am having a hard time believing that, living that, putting my weight fully on Jesus. Like I'm having a really hard time, but I'm singing these same words with somebody right over here in a different row, a different chair, who is able to cling to that right now for me and with me. And we join together, and you are all of a sudden not alone when you can't do it because we have each other. God made his church that way so that we can be together through all of the storms. And we can have faith. We can have faith when things are not well because God gave us his Spirit. Right? Jesus left and he said, I am leaving because I need to give you the Spirit so that you have God's presence with you, so that we can cling to him even when things are difficult and they make no sense. And when it seems like I can't do this, when the waves are too big, the problems I'm face are too mighty, when things don't go the way they ought to, when my world is shook, I can go to God. I can beat on his chest with my frustrations, my anxiety, my doubt, and he can handle it. And we go to him and we wait and we trust. Living faithfully, it takes our willingness to lean fully on Jesus and trust that he really does got this. And then we can have faith in all kinds of circumstances. Like when God is correcting our course and it's painful. Because that is so often what needs to happen when we stray. We can live by faith in those kind of situations. When we look around the world and it's like, this is not okay, things are not good, violence is everywhere and injustice happens all over the place, we can crumble at the weight of that reality, or we can live by faith and live faithfully because God has sent us into a broken world to be light and to be his hands and his feet. If you are a kid, if you are a teenager, you're about to start school, or maybe you already have. If like Marysville already started. You're about to start school, or you already did. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But here's the thing. I know because I have actually, as an adult, have walked into a middle school lunchroom as an adult, as a helper, and it is the most terrifying experience that you can ever experience. If you're about to start school, you might be a little afraid because you might be trying to figure out, where am I going to fit in this lunchroom, in this classroom, on the recess playground? Maybe it's your anxiety seems like it's going to overwhelm you, and maybe it's like, how am I going to find any friends? How am I going to deal with the pressures of my AP classes? Like, this is a big deal for you right now. And guess what? You can go to God. You can trust in him. You can wait on him, and he hears you and he sees you, and he is with you through that. And you can go through that storm by faith. This is election season. We can make it through this season by faith. I was recently heard a believer who occupationally is a politician talk about how one of the struggles that he sees in politics as a believer is that people give money when they're afraid. When we are afraid and somebody promises to fix something, it's like, okay, I can give you support, I can give you money for that. And so as a believer, his struggle is he's like, well, I see my coworkers peddling fear because then you can promise to fix it. But what if that fear overwhelms just us regular people? Because that's all we hear. And then we try and put our trust in somebody else that says they're going to fix it. And when fear is sown in our world, and at times it might threaten to shake us, but what if we lived by faith? With our loyalty to Jesus, trusting in his plan, then no matter what happens this election season or the next one or the next one or the next one, we will not be shaken by the shifting winds of fragile kingdoms, for we are part of God's kingdom and we live by faith. Amen. Amen. We're going to spend some the rest of our service here in responding by singing in a song. And some of you students will actually know this song, but I think a lot of us, it might be a new song for us, and that's okay. But the question I want you to be thinking about is this, is what are you facing right now? Because maybe you're in one of those storms where you need to be living by faith. Maybe the future is uncertain for you. Maybe your present reality is full of turmoil. And maybe you need just a second to approach God with boldness. Maybe to beat on his chest with frustration, but join together with his family. Because there might be someone else in the room who is able to cling to faith right now for you and with you. So my hope is that we can do that together. And what I would love for us to do is do that together, but I want to read the very last verses of the book of Habakkuk that I think are so beautiful, and a beautiful summary of what Habakkuk was learning in this moment, and an invitation for us to do the same. So I closed my Bible, though, and it'll take me a second to find it. Ray, do you want to put it up on the screen? I'm going to read it up there. Would you stand with me as I read this passage over us, and then we can join together in worship? Even though the fig trees have no blossoms, and there are no grapes on the vines, even though the olive crop fails, and the fields lie empty and barren, even though the flocks die in the fields, and the cattle barns are empty, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in the Lord God of my salvation. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes me as sure-footed as a deer, able to tread upon the heights. God, thank you so much for who you are. God, thank you that you see us, that you hear us, that you are near, that your tender care does not put us away when we are frustrated, when we doubt, when we are furious, when we don't understand. God, thank you for embracing us. God, teach us to have faith. Teach us, God.